Hey guys, welcome to All I See is W, where in today's video I will be doing a deep dive analysis, price predictions using technical analysis of Bitcoin as well as strategy, MSTR stock. We'll also be covering the latest updates around the crypto market, as well as sharing with you what my overall assessment is with where we are with market sentiment. Now, if you're new to this channel, first off, I would really appreciate hitting the like, subscribing for more related content. Let's begin, guys. We're looking at technical analysis of Bitcoin. In fact, just prior to this video, Bitcoin has been just ramping up in the near term. And what we're seeing is key crossing signal price action. At one point, it was like over 88,500 and now it's pushing down a little bit. But one of the key things is we're seeing the current price action break through the 200-day moving average, which is the green line that we see. In fact, it crossed through the 50-day moving average at around April 17th, and now it just hovered and broke through that 200-day SMA, which is a key bullish indicator that we want to see, especially with Bitcoin just, tracing down from lower lows. Obviously, we saw that all-time high, back in December or January time point, but we continue to see price action getting beat down from the trend line where it doesn't have the ability to break through that trend line. One occurrence, two, three, four, five. It was until the sixth attempt where we had Bitcoin break through that barrier April 11th, and now it's just been hovering. I mean, it was hovering around that low 80,000, and now it's broken that barrier of 88,000. I think the fact that we just crossed the 200-day simple moving average, we may very well see Bitcoin be primed off to the races and start reaching back to its prior resistance, getting into that 90,000, 100,000, and start suddenly reaching new all-time high levels. Obviously, we've heard from Tom Lee, financial institutions, even the founder of Cardano, forecasting Bitcoin going to $250,000. Tom Lee has it around 180, 200,000. So we also heard from the Bitcoin prophet Josh Mandel, where this cycle Bitcoin can get to $444,444. Who knows what's going to happen? It's just a matter of time when Bitcoin price will continue to go up. But one of the key things is seeing price action now breaking through that indicator. I think that we're going to see increased volume. Bitcoin price is going to keep going up, especially with what we've seen in today's market. While the stock market had such an underperforming day, especially with tariff uncertainty, retaliation with China, we're beginning to see Bitcoin and Bitcoin hedge companies like Strategy have decoupling effects where it performs better than the overall stock market. We've seen that over multiple occurrences now, and it's not the only isolated event where we see that. So I think people are beginning to see that and see the value in diversifying into Bitcoin and MicroStrategy. Let's take a look at MicroStrategy's technical analysis. So, what we've seen with the prior all-time high back in November was around $540. So, we are far away from that prior resistance. However, that doesn't mean that we can't reach that level. I'm thinking somewhere around that range of like Q2, Q3, perhaps somewhere around July, even sooner, we can see price of MicroStrategy break through that prior resistance, getting back into that 550. It all just really depends on Bitcoin price. What if, let's say, Bitcoin breaks early? Where it starts ramping up in Q2, most likely sometime in Q3, but you never know. Q2 may be the quarter where it just outperforms as well. But I think what I've been saying is once we see the price action, in fact, MSTR was in the green today, which was very exciting to see. Uh, Price action, once it gets to this prior resistance, it starts hovering around that 340, whether it hovers above it, it crosses up and down. But once we see the price action, stay around that consistent 340 to become the new support line, I think that's where we're going to start seeing the next stair step up back into that 400 time point before we get into that $550 time point again. But let's say if Bitcoin breaks $150,000 or even higher, I think MicroStrategy, we're definitely close to getting to that 750 at a minimum. Getting above that is definitely achievable depending on the price action of Bitcoin. But I think where we are right now, we're definitely seeing healthy consolidation. We're beginning to see higher highs. When we compare March to the low point of April when the price went down to like 230. But I think where we are now, even though we see price around 330, that doesn't mean that we're going to see, continuous up. We will continue to see volatility as well. However, I think market participants are beginning to see much more confidence in MicroStrategy's performance, especially during these market uncertainties. So we're looking very good just based on the technicals of MicroStrategy. I could very well see a V-shaped pattern or a continuous U-shaped cup and handle where price action will continue to go up from here on out through the rest of 2025. Let's take a look at this posting from Cryptos R Us. I would highly recommend checking out Cryptos R Us. George is such a great speaker, great analysis with his videos on YouTube. So I would highly recommend checking out Cryptos R Us. He's the guy when it comes to crypto analysis. But according to this, Bitcoin belief phase is next. So we know about this psychology of the market cycle where we have euphoria, anxiety, anger, depression, disbelief, hope, optimism. And just with that recent retracement downturn, I think now we may very well be in that belief, thrill, euphoria phase. And obviously, with Bitcoin, we're still in that accumulation phase, especially with the post halving. We haven't seen a breakout yet. So we may very well be in this phase upcoming very soon. Belief, throw, and euphoria kick in where the price of Bitcoin can just ramp up. Today, we see a sea of red. I mean, everything, mostly everything was in the red. Bitcoin performed today. I mean, it reached 88,000 at one point. Why? We're beginning to see decoupling effects. The entire world is beginning to embrace Bitcoin. In fact, Vietnam, they're, creating an exchange with Bybit. We hear Japan, companies buying up Bitcoin like MetaPlanet. Even South Korea, they're trying to establish a strategic Bitcoin reserve similar to the United States. So we're hearing El Salvador continuously buy Bitcoin. In fact, Brazil is trying to embrace Bitcoin as well. So all of this is coming into play. It's really global game theory at a race, financial institutions with the fiat. We're just going to continue to see the dollar being printed. Inflation will continue to go up. And as a result, the dollar is just going to be more and more devalued over time. And why is this the case? Bitcoin is the ultimate safe haven. So I think Bitcoin and companies like MicroStrategy is the ultimate hedge towards, embracing the future of traditional finance. One of the key things I like to look at with the rainbow chart is, seeing how each having event drives up the price of Bitcoin. So what we see with the current price action right now, it's in that lowest tier in blue. I mean, it did reach green, but then it went back to blue. It hasn't even broken out to the yellow, orange, and red, which we always see in every halving event cycle. So I think that it's only a matter of time where the relative strength volume is just going to kick in. MACD is just going to just catapult up. And for those reasons, that's where we got to stack sats because these things are going to fly when we least expect it to. So it's time in the market, not time in the market. Here's an interesting take. Bitcoin is ranked number 8. In fact, they're right behind Amazon, $1.7 trillion. But soon enough, Bitcoin is going to bypass Amazon's place and it's going to bypass Google, all dependent on the price activity. I think once Bitcoin ramps up over 100K, I think we're going to see Bitcoin, be neck to neck around Nvidia's ranking. And then at one point, we're just going to see Bitcoin be right behind gold sometime this year. So in about 3 years, we may very well see Bitcoin be ranked number one as a top asset class by market cap. I think in the next week, we're going to see Bitcoin over $2 trillion, which is very achievable. I mean, it happened when it reached 110,000 all-time high. One thing to also keep in mind is that the global M2 money supply continues to increase. We see M2 money supply like in China, in Europe, Japan, United States continues to go up. What does that mean? Price of Bitcoin tends to lag behind for about 12 weeks. I think we're at that trajectory 3 month cycle where Bitcoin price is just going to follow. This is definitely a great leading indicator. Good thing is seeing M2 money supply go up. Why? Bitcoin price is just going to correlate and follow that in a matter of time. We're looking at public companies that own Bitcoin. So MicroStrategy continues to apply their strategy, their laser sharp focus of buying more Bitcoin. I mean, there's only a limited amount of Bitcoin available. They're stacking sats. They're now close to 540,000 Bitcoin with the very low average cost. I mean, there's no other company that's even close to, 50,000. I mean, right now is Mara. So strategy, they've been just buying Bitcoin since COVID timeframe. So 5 years now of just buying, whether the price is below $10,000, above $100,000. In fact, strategy bought again, with their average of like 80, mid $80,000 with their overall cost average, not even above 68,000. So strategy, there's no second best. They continue to hodl. Think about when price of Bitcoin goes up to $200,000. What's going to be MSTR's market capitalization? Today, Saylor announces that they bought 6,556 Bitcoin for $500 million at the price of 84,000. So now their overall Bitcoin hodl, with the amount of $36 billion dollars at the cost average of $67,000 per Bitcoin. So they're winning right now. Bitcoin, I don't think is going to hit this price point of 67,000. So Metaplanet, they have a hodl too of like 4,000 Bitcoin. But when you look at their cost average, they're in the mid 80s. But they'll win because they are embracing Bitcoin in the early phase. Saylor is in the earliest phase, having this cost average, but they're only winning right now. Key thing is we see back in February, strategy bought at 97,000, big Bitcoin hodl. March 31st, they had a big Bitcoin hodl around that 86,000. And today, a fairly big purchase as well at $84,000. At one point, like what Saylor says, buying Bitcoin in $80,000 range is ridiculous. At one point, we won't ever be able to buy Bitcoin at these prices. So I think now's the time to adopt Bitcoin, embrace that Bitcoin isn't going away. It's the future of finance. It's really changing how we look at everything. Whether you grew up learning about S&P, 401ks and all that. I think Bitcoin is the safe haven. We just gotta adapt to it. Here's an interesting visual from Chris Millis coming to a near screen near you. Netflix, Michael Saylor, one man, one company, one coin breaking fiat. So obviously we had Saylor announced to be the Bitcoin alchemist, but really he is transforming traditional finance. So very nice visual. Here's an interesting post from Chris with a total of 538,000 Bitcoin strategy is now 53% of the way to one Nakamoto every $1,000 that Bitcoin increases, Strategy's balance sheet increases by $538 million. Put that into context. So, what if Bitcoin goes to $200,000? How is Strategy's balance sheet going to look? It's just going to look huge. And we see average cost $67,000, 53% away from one Nakamoto. 1 million Bitcoin is basically one Nakamoto. And overall treasury just continues to ramp up. At one point, we're going to see $600,000 soon. 4 years from now, where is strategy going to be? Will they be over $1 million? It's very possible. With that, I want to play a video clip of Michael Saylor.
I can't let your previous comment go unchallenged. I'm showing you how to build a 100-story building using steel, which is Bitcoin, a digital scarcity. To equate Ethereum and Solana to Bitcoin is like equating balsa wood and clay bricks to steel. And yeah, you can also lever them, but you can lever balsa wood, but levering, you can build lots of things that are steel containers and you can use rubber bands, but it's not the same thing. So there's a reason that securities law prohibits public companies from capitalizing on securities. And the reason is because you can lever a security 100 to 1. And so if I actually issued 1% of the float of a security, I could take $10 million and create a $10 billion market cap company. And so you would literally have 10 million in the float. And then you would tell yourself you had $4 billion of collateral on your balance sheet after you levered it up. And then you would start to act that way. And then when the bottom of the structure comes crashing down, you get a situation like Terra Luna or like FTX. Both of those were examples of companies levered on proprietary tokens. And so Solana and Ethereum are they may not be securities, but they're definitely tokens. And as tokens, they're not a commodity. And so I would caution anybody listening here against levering up on a token, right, or a proprietary asset, because it's kind of like trying to copy my skyscraper and doing it with bricks or with aluminum or with copper, right? The entire thing's going to buckle and lots of people are going to die and it's going to be a catastrophe and you're going to take out the entire city block. And that did happen. It has happened over and over again in the crypto world. Happens all the time. People think that they discovered leverage and what I'm doing is not an intelligent or brilliant idea because I'm using leverage. The reason it works is because I'm putting leverage on steel. I'm doing it with the right material. I'm actually using a product which doesn't deflect, right? And so Bitcoin is a crypto asset which does not deflect. That's why you can lean on it with $10 billion of leverage or $100 billion of leverage. And if you do the same thing with FTT token or Luna or pick your favorite token, if you do the same thing, you're going to find it will buckle at some point. And when it buckles, there's going to be catastrophe.
So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what your comments, questions are. One of the key takeaways is embrace Bitcoin, keep stacking sats. MicroStrategy is going to be going to the moon. Thanks, guys. I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.